Honey, slow down for the lady at the keys. She's working hard back there.
Linda Harris didn't look up. Her fingers kept moving across the stenotype keys, capturing every word.
There isn't a single precedent that supports the SEC's interpretation of Section 10b, 5, not one.
A ripple of light laughter. Judge Stephen frowned, but said nothing.
That's not true. He knows that's not true.
Charles pivoted back to the jury, confident his closing would soon be over. Behind him, Linda lifted her hands off the stenotype. She removed her thin black glasses and folded them carefully on the desk. Her chair scraped back. She stood, and the courtroom fell silent.
Miss Harris, is there a problem with the record?
Linda didn't answer. She kept her eyes on the judge, her Harvard class ring catching the light as her hand came to rest on the machine. But inside Linda Harris, a clock was ticking backward. Far from this courtroom, Linda Harris, Harvard Law School class of 2001. Top of her class, a rising star in litigation. Then her 5-year-old daughter, Sierra, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
Leukemia. The word still hit like a glass door shattering.
Linda traded closing arguments for chemotherapy schedules, motions in limine for morphine pumps. She became a court reporter because it offered a predictable paycheck and a federal pension, something to hold on to. For 11 years, she had sat in courtrooms recording other lawyers' arguments, burying her own voice beneath the keys. But she never forgot the law. The diploma hung on her wall. Her class ring stayed on her finger. And now, a man who had never spent a night in a pediatric oncology ward was lying to the court and expecting her to type it. In the silence, Linda Harris remembered exactly who she was. The silence stretched taut. Every juror, every attorney, watched the court reporter standing rigid.
Your Honor, if the record is complete, I'll continue my closing argument.
Judge Stephen gave a tight nod, but his eyes stayed on Linda, questioning.
As I was saying, the SEC has produced no case to support their reading of 10b, 5, not one.
He just said it again. Right in front of me, no one in this room is pushing back.
Her fingers hovered over the stenotype keys, but she did not sit down. She couldn't.
This case is built on ambition, not authority, and the SEC knows it.
There are precedents. Big ones. Cases he should have shepherdized years ago.
On the bench, Judge Stephen shifted uneasily, his frown deepening as he watched the court reporter. Then something inside Linda clicked into place with cold finality. She was done being invisible. The truth was coming out.
The SEC's case is built on sand. I am done here.
Your Honor.
Yes, Miss Harris?
Permission to address the court as an officer of the bar.
Judge Stephen's eyes narrowed behind his wire-rimmed glasses. Something about the name tugged at memory.
Harris, weren't you a clerk for Judge Michaels years ago?
Yes, Your Honor. Harvard Law, class of 2001.
Objection. This is highly irregular. The record is closed.
Overruled. Sit down, counsel. The court will hear Miss Harris.
Linda Harris stepped forward, her heels clicking on the wooden floor, her Harvard ring glinting as she entered the well of the court for the first time as an attorney. The whole room held its breath.
Ceci v. Texas Gulf Sulphur Company, 1968. The Second Circuit held that a company's misleading press release constituted a manipulative or deceptive device under Section 10b.
Charles Davenport's smirk didn't just fade, it shattered. His hand froze mid-gesture.
Basic Incorporated v. Levinson, 1988. The Supreme Court adopted the fraud on the market theory, exactly the basis the SEC pleads here.
Your Honor, this is not a law school lecture. The jury doesn't need...
Counselor, you will sit down. The jury needs to hear what a correct statement of the law sounds like.
Charles sank into his chair, his gold cufflinks scraping the wood. The jury was no longer looking at him. In the jury box, an older woman leaned forward. A young man put down his pen. Every face was fixed on Linda Harris.
These are not obscure footnotes. Texas Gulf Sulphur has been good law for over 50 years. Any first-year associate would know it.
Charles opened his mouth, then closed it. In 25 years, no one had ever dared to correct him in his own closing.
If the court will indulge me, there are two more precedents that directly contradict Mr. Davenport's theory. And one is from this very circuit. Stone Ridge Investment Partners v. Scientific Atlanta, 2008. The Supreme Court drew a clear line. Scheme liability requires deceptive conduct, not mere misstatements, which is exactly what the SEC alleges here.
Charles's breathing had gone shallow. His carefully built argument was being dismantled by a woman he dismissed as a typist.
That distinction alone destroys Mr. Davenport's claim that no precedent supports the SEC.
Then she delivered the killing stroke, a recent ruling that Charles had never shepherdized.
United States v. Blaszczak, Second Circuit, 2019. This court held that the Exchange Act's anti-fraud provisions apply broadly, directly contrary to the defense's narrowing argument.
Charles did not move. His hands lay flat on the table, his face a mask of someone watching their career end. In the gallery, the hedge fund's general counsel rose slowly, his eyes burning into Charles Davenport. Without a word, he picked up his briefcase and walked out of the courtroom. The sound of the door closing echoed like a verdict.
Order. This court is not adjourned.
But order was a memory. The courtroom erupted, and Linda Harris stood at the center of the storm she had unleashed.
Order in this court. I will have silence. Mr. Davenport, your closing argument is stricken from the record. The jury will be instructed to disregard it entirely.
Your Honor, this is a travesty. The defense has rights.
Judge Stephen didn't blink. At the prosecution table, the SEC rose and moved for judgment as a matter of law on liability.
The motion is taken under advisement. We will reconvene tomorrow at 9 for a hearing. This court stands adjourned.
Linda walked back to her stenotype on legs that felt borrowed. The room melted into a blur of motion.
4 cases. 4 cases and 11 years. All leading to this.
The gallery emptied one by one. The SEC attorneys nodded to her as they passed. The jury filed out in silence. Charles Davenport remained seated for a long minute, staring at nothing, before his associates helped him up. Tomorrow, the hearing. But tonight, the quiet of her apartment would come with a price she hadn't yet counted. Outside the courtroom, Charles Davenport pressed his phone to his ear, his gold cufflinks catching the harsh hallway light.
What do you mean? You are pulling me. This is my case.
The managing partner's voice was ice. The hedge fund was threatening to fire the firm unless Charles was removed immediately.
They can't do that. I built their defense.
The answer came back flat. They already have. You are off the case, effective now, and the partnership committee will be in touch.
You can't.
Charles stood alone in the marble hallway, his reflection shimmering in the polished floor. His career was over. At that moment, Linda Harris pushed through the courtroom's heavy doors, her briefcase in hand. Her stride was steady, her eyes forward. She passed Charles without a glance, as if he were a ghost in someone else's story. Charles watched her go, a woman he had mocked, now walking away with everything he had just lost. Linda entered the silent apartment, the day's chaos now miles away. She stopped at the wall. The smaller frame held a photo of Sierra, at 5, bald from chemo, smiling like she hadn't a care.
The law and my child. 2 promises I kept for 11 years.
The phone rang, blocked number. She almost let it go.
Hello?
The voice was calm, official. Miss Harris, Department of Justice, Office of the Inspector General. We saw what you did today. We'd like to offer you the position of heading the SDNY's Whistleblower Division. Your expertise and courage are exactly what we need.
I am just a court reporter.
The voice softened. You haven't been just anything for a long time. Think about it. We'll call tomorrow. The line went dead. Linda set the phone down, tears blurring the image of her daughter. The future she had traded for Sierra's life was suddenly knocking. The next morning, Judge Hollister's courtroom was packed. No one wanted to miss the ruling.
On the SEC's motion for judgment as a matter of law, the court finds the defense's theory unsupported. Motion granted.
He dismissed the jury with thanks. The trial was over. In the back row, a young woman in a navy blazer wiped her eyes. Sierra Harris had flown in from New Haven to surprise her mother.
She did it. She actually did it. And she has no idea I am here.
At the front, Linda Harris stood still, the weight of 48 hours settling into her shoulders. The SEC team approached her one by one. Firm handshakes, quiet words of thanks.
I've never seen her as a lawyer. Not like this. Not in full power.
Linda gathered her things, scanned the emptying gallery, but her eyes never found her daughter. Sierra stayed until the last bailiff left, a secret witness to the moment her mother's two lives finally collided. Sierra slipped out the side door of the courtroom, her heart hammering against her ribs. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. Breaking. Federal judge grants SEC motion after court reporter cites precedents.
They're already running with it. Mom's name is going to be everywhere.
She opened a new message to her mother. Her thumbs paused over the keyboard. I am so proud of you, Mom.
Do I tell her I was here? Number. Not today. Today is hers.
She pressed send. The message flew out into the courthouse's signal. A moment later, the reply came. Thank you, baby. Call you tonight when I get home. These old courthouse walls are buzzing. Sierra read it twice, a tear slipping free. Her mother had no idea.
You have no idea, Mom, but you will. Soon.
In a wood-paneled conference room down the hall, the hedge fund's new legal team sat across from the SEC. Charles Davenport was not invited. The math was brutal. With liability nailed to the wall, the only play was damage control. The SEC attorney slid a figure across the polished table. $214 million. Outside, Charles Davenport pressed his palm against the cold glass of the conference room door. He was a ghost at his own funeral.
25 years, and a court reporter killed it in 3 minutes.
Inside, the hedge fund's general counsel nodded grimly. The pens came out. A cashier's check for $214 million. The largest securities fraud settlement in a decade was signed and slid across the table. Linda Harris exited a side office, her briefcase in hand, her shoulders lighter than they had been in years. She saw Charles at the window, his face slack, his career in ashes, and felt nothing. Not pity, not triumph. She turned and walked away, the settlement complete, his name no longer on any document. 2 weeks later, a letter from the New York Bar Association arrived in a plain envelope. They were opening a formal investigation into Charles Davenport's conduct during the trial.
Duty to the profession. I can't hide anymore.
She provided a sworn statement, then agreed to testify under oath. The wheels of accountability were turning. The deposition room was small and windowless. Charles Davenport's defense lawyer, a man with a reputation for crushing witnesses, sat across from her. Charles's lawyer leaned forward. Miss Harris, you've spent 11 years as a court reporter. Are you really still competent to practice law?
I can recite the holding of Basic v. Levinson, the elements of a Rule 10b-5 claim, and the Shepherd's signal for Blaschek. Would you like me to continue?
The lawyer tried again. You interrupted a closing argument. That's unethical grandstanding.
Rule 3.3 of the Rules of Professional Conduct requires candor toward the tribunal. Mr. Davenport's argument was false. I had a duty to correct it.
In the adjacent room, Charles Davenport watched the video feed, his tie loosened, his license hanging by a thread. The deposition lasted 3 hours. By the end, Linda Harris had cited 4 more cases, and the lawyer had no more questions. 3 days later, the phone rang again. DOJ, Office of Inspector General, this time with a formal offer.
Whistleblower division head. It would mean facing a courtroom again, not as a reporter, as myself.
She picked up the phone and dialed the one person whose voice she needed.
Sierra, it's Mom. I need your advice about something.
She explained the offer without the courtroom details, just that the DOJ wanted her.
Mom, You've given 11 years to everyone else. You deserve this. Take it. You taught me to fight for what's right. Now you need to fight for yourself.
Linda hung up and sat in the quiet. Then she opened the drawer and took out the formal offer letter. She signed her name on the line that said Linda Harris, head of Whistleblower Division, South Dakota, NY. For the first time in over a decade, Linda Harris didn't feel like she was hiding. She felt like she was coming home. The bar panel took their seats behind a raised desk. Linda Harris raised her right hand and swore to tell the truth.
Mr. Davenport's closing argument contained a knowingly false statement that no precedent supported the SEC's theory. It was a deliberate misrepresentation.
The panel's questions were sharp. Linda answered each one with a case citation and a direct reference to the trial record. Then Charles Davenport took the stand. Sweat already beaded on his forehead.
I was speaking extemporaneously. I never intended to mislead the court.
There isn't a single precedent that supports the SEC's interpretation of Section 10(b)(5). Not one. Those were your exact words, Mr. Davenport. Charles had no answer. The transcript didn't lie. The panel returned in under an hour. The chairperson's voice was clear: censure and a 6-month suspension, effective immediately. As the gavel fell, Charles's firm released a statement. Charles Davenport has elected to take early retirement, effective today. His career was over. Linda Harris sat in the back of the room, her expression unreadable. The weight of the day had not yet lifted. That evening, Linda Harris sat in her apartment, the signed DOJ letter resting on her coffee table. She reached for her phone.
Sierra? It's Mom. I have news. Good news.
She told her daughter about the DOJ offer, the signed letter, the start date. For the first time in years, Linda sounded like the lawyer she'd once been.
Mom, that's incredible. I knew you could do anything. We have to celebrate. Let's meet for coffee tomorrow, just the two of us.
I'd like that, baby. I'd like that a lot.
Sierra's voice was bright, but she didn't mention the trial. She held on to her secret, waiting for the right moment.
Tomorrow, over coffee. Then she'll know that I saw her, that I saw everything.
Linda hung up and looked around her small apartment, the diploma, the photo of Sierra, and felt the walls of her old life giving way to something much larger. Tomorrow morning, she would wake up not as court reporter Harris, but as Linda Harris, head of the Whistleblower Division, and her daughter would be waiting. The coffee shop on Spring Street was quiet, the morning light soft through the windows. Linda saw her daughter at a back table, 2 cups already waiting.
Mom, over here. I got your favorite.
Linda slid into the booth, and for a moment, everything was ordinary. Then Sierra reached across and took her mother's hand.
Mom, I was there. In the courtroom. I saw you.
Linda's breath caught. The words didn't make sense.
I flew in to surprise you. I saw you stand up. I heard you recite those cases. Mom, you destroyed him. I never saw you as a lawyer before. Not really. That was my mother in there.
Linda's composure, held for 11 years, cracked. A sob escaped her. She stood, and Sierra rose to meet her. Mother and daughter held each other in the middle of a quiet coffee shop, the years of sacrifice and silence finally spoken.
You saw me. You actually saw me.
Monday morning, Linda Harris walked up the stone steps of 1 St. Andrew's Plaza, her briefcase heavy, her heart light. The elevator opened to the 15th floor. New paint, new carpet, and a door with a name that stopped her. Head of Whistleblower Division, Linda Harris. 11 years in the making, pressed into a brass plate.
This is real. No one can type over me anymore.
She placed the photos, Sierra, cancer-free, Yale Law pin bright, and the Harvard diploma that had never come down. On her desk lay a stack of case files, whistleblower complaints waiting for a voice.
Let's get to work.
She opened the first file and began to read, the Harvard ring on her finger catching the sun. For 11 years, she had recorded the words of others. Now, she was writing the first page of her own. Linda Harris, head of the whistleblower division, was open for business. In a dim bar 3 blocks from the courthouse, Charles Davenport sat alone. No briefcase, no cufflinks, no firm behind him. The whiskey was cheap. The glass was never empty. He had become a regular in a place where no one knew his name. The bartender slid a newspaper across the wood. A headline caught the dim light. Court reporter's stand shakes securities fraud case. He turned the page with trembling fingers. A photograph of Linda Harris stood beside the article. Glasses on, ring visible, not smiling, not needing to.
Head of Whistleblower Division. She's in the chair I was supposed to have.
He read the paragraph twice, the one that called him a disgraced former partner, his name reduced to a footnote. He folded the newspaper in half, then in half again, pressing it flat as if he could make the words disappear. He took a long drink. The ice clinked. Someone at the end of the bar laughed. Charles Davenport didn't look up. He just finished his drink and raised a finger for another. The ghost of a smirk, the one he'd worn in the courtroom, was long gone. All that remained was a man who had laughed at the wrong person. A week later, Sierra stepped off the elevator with a stack of Yale law textbooks under her arm and walked toward the door with her mother's name on it.
Mom, this place is amazing. The view, the seal on the wall. You belong here.
They settled across from each other, the wide desk scattered with case files and a half-eaten sandwich.
I've been thinking about my concentration. I want to do securities law.
Securities. That's where the sharks swim, baby. They don't play fair.
I know, but I saw a shark get taken down by a court reporter in 3 minutes. I want to learn how to do that.
Linda's expression shifted. She looked at her daughter, not as a child, but as a future colleague.
Besides, I already have a better teacher than anyone at Yale.
You sure you want to learn from a woman who took an 11-year detour to get here?
It wasn't a detour, Mom. It was the prologue.
The building had emptied hours ago. Only one office light still burned on the 15th floor. Linda stood by the shelf, her fingers tracing the worn keys of the stenotype machine she had used for 11 years.
We made it, baby girl.
She slipped her Harvard ring off her finger and set it gently on top of the machine. A decade of silence now remembered. The door clicked. Sierra leaned in, a brown paper bag in her hands.
I brought takeout. Figured you'd still be here.
You know me too well.
They sat together on the small office couch, chopsticks in hand, the city lights blinking through the window. No grand words, just mother and daughter. The years between them settled like dust. The stenotype sat on the shelf, her ring on top, a quiet witness to everything that had led here. Dawn crept over the Manhattan skyline, painting the office in shades of rose and gold. The long night finally over. Linda and Sierra stood side by side at the window, the city waking quietly beneath them, lights dimming in the streets.
It was worth it, wasn't it? All those years.
Everything.
Their hands found each other, fingers laced tight, a silent promise passed from mother to daughter, across the quiet room. Through the glass, the federal courthouse stood in the distance, its columns catching the first pale light. Linda's Harvard ring still rested on the windowsill, its gold now glinting with the dawn. She didn't need to wear it anymore. The woman who had earned it was finally visible to the world. They watched the sun inch higher, the skyline sharp and bright, the sky a clean slate, and the world outside kept turning. But in that room, in that moment, Linda Harris had already won everything she ever needed.